Alright YouTube, I'm using a bit of a new lighting setup here which should actually work a little bit better. I'm still fiddling around with things a little bit. I'm not used to this amount of light shining into my eyes, but I'll get through it somehow, I suppose. This is a video on why you should not compare legacy media outlets, because I alluded to this before. A lot of times people say something to the effect of, if they're on like maybe the alt-right, they say, well, I don't trust the media, the mainstream media, generally they mean. But Fox is better than MSNBC or CNN or something like that. I say that's not actually the case. They are the same amount of trustworthy, which is to say not at all. We've got to remember what Fox was doing back during the W administration. A lot of the treason against the American people that was set up at the time that led to Obama being able to do some of the stupid shit that he's been doing for the last 8 years started under W. In addition, a lot of it started under Bubba Bill. Now, a lot of this goes back to the 1990s. This peaceful, prosperous, so-called golden utopian era between the fall of the Soviet Union and 9/11 is largely a mythology. Bubba Bill is remembered as a decent president because he happened to be in office at a time that our economy wasn't really having any issues, when he was able to piss away more money on them programs, maybe, so to speak. And, you know, you hadn't had the dot-com bubble burst yet, the housing bubble hadn't burst yet. But a lot of that groundwork, as well, NAFTA, of course, I think we can look back and say that wasn't a great idea. He didn't really do anything to deserve any specific credit. In fact, he reigned over a period of time where there was a massive crime wave in this country, which was largely ignored. His answer was ban assault rifles. It didn't work. When it was repealed, which was one of the only sane things W ever did, was not extend it. That's when the crime rate began to drop, actually, which was no surprise to people, I guess, with common sense. But it's taken 3 successive administrations, generally speaking, to get where we are now with the crap that we're putting up with. Yes, things accelerated after 9/11, and Obama certainly accelerated things on the end of domestic surveillance, drone-based warmongering as opposed to more overt troop maneuvers and so forth. But it's the same thing. And Fox defended all that crap at the time, like the Patriot Act. There were a few people who questioned it. Most of the legacy media didn't. You'd be hard-pressed if you go back to right after 9/11. Very little of the legacy media questioned our response to that, thinking that we needed to invade Afghanistan, even though it wasn't clear Osama was there. It wasn't clear he was even alive very long after that. What about our response in Iraq at the time? A lot of these outlets supported it. And in fact, the MSNBCs and CNNs had no problem with it, really. During shock and awe, they said, well, you know, we've basically routed and destroyed the Iraqi military, so that's good. It wasn't until we began perpetually occupying things that they started having a problem with it, really, for the most part. Private individuals may have. The origins of the underground media may have realized there was a bit of a problem. Largely, though, things fell into partisan bickering. That is, Fox and maybe Rush Limbaugh and some of these others defended the Bushites while going after anyone who disagreed as a traitor, just as now you have the MSNBCs and CNNs and so forth defending Obama when he does stupid shit, and then going after the Republicans as traitors. It's the same thing. The shoe is just on the different foot. What I would tell people is Fox News may or may not give Trump a pass. If Trump does do something that's totally fucking stupid, Fox may give him a pass and beat around the bush and try to justify what he's been doing. I won't. Many others won't. Most of the alt-right won't. The underground media won't. And that's now more powerful than Fox will ever be again. But some of the legacy media outlets, they will. And all this debate over, oh, is the mainstream media far left or far right, that doesn't matter either. I had somebody yesterday say, oh, all of these media outlets are owned by Republicans. They're all you're living under illusion if you think there are any liberals in charge of it. Well, it depends on how you define liberal, I guess. If you're an actual leftist, yeah, you probably identify them as far right. Just like if you're an actual conservative, you probably identify them as far left. But that is that you're looking at the wrong thing. What they actually are is simply pro-establishment. They're pro-corporatist. What unifies actual conservatives and actual leftists, amusingly speaking, is that the brand of neoliberalism slash neoconservatism that runs our government, the corporatism that runs our media, is corrupt. It's identified as corrupt, perhaps for different reasons, by both the far right and the far left. I think when I stated before that the alt-right was kind of like the modern hippie movement, what I meant was not that they were sitting around in prayer circles, rubbing beads and smoking marijuana. What I meant is that they are an outside group that has become gotten to the point where they shun the establishment altogether. They've gone past just the partisan issue. For a long time, opposition to whatever incarnation of government exists has taken the form of partisanship. That is, a Democrat is in the White House. Therefore, people who are Republicans suddenly become a bit more anti-establishment. A Republican is in the White House. Democrats become a bit more anti-establishment. You see that happening now. As soon as it was clear that Trump had won, especially in the electoral vote, because they clung to the vain hope that he would get kept out by faithless electors, which was never going to happen. It was funny to hear them whine about this. As soon as it was clear that Trump was going to be the next president, all of these pages that have spent years and years telling you to mindlessly obey the government, what did they do? Oh, questioning government is great, obstruction is great, it's great to stand in the way of the man, we can't trust what the government's doing. And then, again, the shoe is on the other foot. Therefore, the Republican partisans are like, no, you traitors, you filthy pinkos, or whatever sort of stuff like that. But I'm not going to compare them. All legacy media outlets are corrupt. They are all run by corporations and banks. It tends to be the same group of corporations and banks. They're multinational. They don't have any specific loyalty, let's face it, to the United States, any more than the political parties do. You see, it's not just the Clinton family taking bribes from Saudi Arabia. Who do you think is paying off people like John McCain to constantly squabble and rant and rave and talk about how great it is that we should march into some other country and expend our young people's blood over in some godforsaken desert somewhere? Who do you think's paying him off? Who do you think could possibly be funding him to say these things? So that's the problem I have with this general concept. I do not see a difference between Fox and MSNBC, or CNN and the BBC, or RT and Al Jazeera, or NBC and CNBC. They're all basically the same. They're all corporate media networks. They all lie to you. It's just that because of the way their finances are structured, essentially, because of the leanings maybe of those who are rubbing elbows with the true billionaires, as well as the billionaires themselves, because of the fact that they have slightly different ideologies. It's neoliberal versus neoconservative. It's not really different. It's sort of like a group of people that are betting on a football game or something like that. They're both seeking to make a return. Do they have any really, really strong feelings about one team being more morally virtuous than the other or something like that? Not unless they're just a total fucking sports zealot or something like that. At the end of the day, they identify, yeah, it's a game. It's a football game. These teams, after the game, they meet up and probably go have drinks or something, unless there's been some really dirty plays or something like that. Otherwise, though, they're part of the same franchise. They're part of the same corporate franchise. They're running around the field throwing the ball. They're hoping they play well. They get more sponsors. They get more money. They get a higher salary, something like that under the sun. They get more corporate deals, more advertising deals, literally speaking. The media is the same way. When you have some media group glomming on to a Bush or a Clinton or something like that, it's not because they're remarkably different from one another. They're not. They're proposing much the same thing. In 2012, it was difficult to tell who was speaking up on the debate stage if you closed your eyes, because Romney and Obama had difficulty differentiating their actual platforms other than on military spending most of the time. It's not that. It's just they're making bets, essentially, in a Las Vegas sense, in order to make more money. They're trying to buy up candidates. Oftentimes what happens, this is why I have some hope for Trump, not enormous utopian optimism, but some hope, is that he didn't draw all of the major corporate donors and banksters and so forth to him. They almost all were funding his opponent. In fact, there were more people trying to fund the libertarian movement at the end stage than funding Trump. He remained largely self-bankrolled and grassroots bankrolled. That is a good thing. In fact, it's not fundamentally that different than what happened to Bernie Sanders. And a lot of his fans look at Trump, and again, they think he's the next Hitler. They think he's even worse than Hitler, something like that. They think he's a madman. Ultimately, will he remain uncorrupted? Will he continue to be above that money? My hope is that some of the insiders that are getting cabinet pick positions are people who have defected long ago, that Trump is aware have defected from that sort of corporatism, and that he's actually setting up to fundamentally overhaul the way this nation does business. Will that actually happen? I don't know. He is attacking the U.S. intelligence agencies. That also gives me hope. Those agencies fit into several categories. Those that should be shrunk, those that should be done away with entirely, and those that are necessary, like the FBI, that nonetheless have a bit too much power and should be further constrained to their more original usage. Like, do we really need the CIA? All it seems to do is run cocaine and insinuate itself into political discourse these days, so I'm not sure we actually need a central intelligence agency. Do we need an NSA? Well, the FBI can accomplish their jobs. We should constrain them more to the Constitution. Once we do that, we probably don't really need the NSA anymore. And if we weren't fighting proxy wars constantly, if we didn't have people overthrowing the Gaddafis of the world and trying to overthrow the Assads of the world, we probably wouldn't be dealing with the issues that made the NSA necessary in the first place. So that would be my idea. But the legacy media will tell you, yeah, this proxy war is a great idea, assuming that somebody that they support happens to be in control in D.C. They're against it. They're all anti-war if the party they don't like is out. But fundamentally, they're arguing for the same thing. They're arguing for authoritarianism. They're arguing for intervention, government intervention, warmongering, more taxes, more centralized control, less freedom, certainly less national sovereignty. They all argue for the same thing so long as the right party happens to be more dominant within D.C. That is, they have the same ideas, they just differ on who should put them into place, but the ideas being put into place are basically the same. I'd like to think that some of the people in the media are actually fooled enough to think that this makes sense. It's not that they're corrupt so much that they're dumbasses or something like that. A lot of the little people have begun to see through it, which is better than in the past. And there was a time not that long ago that most Americans actually trusted these morons. Now it's a kind of a lost cause for them. But to those who supported Trump, thinking, oh, well, Fox is great because they, late in the game, a few of their anchors decided to kind of support Trump. That doesn't make any sense. There's still, if Trump does make a bad decision or congressional Republicans do something screwy, they'll try to get you to support it. And I would suggest that you not do that. You should stand against a bad idea regardless, even if you voted for somebody. If they have a bad idea, you should make it clear that you don't support that idea. This is how republics can fall. You start unquestioningly obeying everything that is said by whoever you happen to support at the time. Well, that's not the way things ought to work in an intelligent republic. That's about all. Peace out.